This is a Zach Feldman Show replay on ZRadioLive.com.
He has a new book out called Reconsider Revelation, Chronological Order. It is Bruce Charsky. Bruce, thanks so much for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show. How's everything going?
Oh, good, Zach. Thank you so much for having me. What a great experience for me.
Yeah, anytime. I'm so glad you're able to join us here today. Tell me all about Reconsider Revolution.
So,
Revelation,
let me
excuse
just,
me.
Yeah, Revelation. So let me just talk about my goals for writing this book. Just bear with me for a moment. But this is such a humbling and exciting opportunity to be on the radio talking about this inspired book, Reconsider Revelation, Chronological Order. I'm thrilled to share my goals in writing this book with your listening audience.
Are
So
you
Zach,
reading something right now?
No, I'm just I've got some notes that I'm kind of going through.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I guess so. What do you have to say, I guess?
Yeah. So let me just give a brief history about writing this book and sharing my goals. So back I was taught the book of Revelation in 7th grade by Dr. Richard and Carolyn Heck, where I went to church, and this was the First Baptist Church in Wellsboro, PA.
Mm-hmm.
And this would lead eventually to a continued thirst to study and teach on the book of Revelation later into my 30s and 40s. And after several times, Zach, on teaching on this book, I felt the Lord Jesus prompting me to now write a book. And with the premise of putting it into a chronological order. I had just never read anyone who ever did it quite like that. And that's the way I felt being prompted to do so.
Yeah, so you took the teachings of this, and you said, you know what, screw it, let me put this into a way that people are going to understand it better.
Yes, exactly. Very, very exactly.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the editors who was willing to read the manuscript said, "Bruce, no offense, but your book is very simple." And I said, "Thank you so much. That's exactly how I want this to come across." I'm not a theologian. I didn't want it to come across as confusing. I just, very simply, here it is.
Awesome. Well, and it's out now for people to enjoy. What's kind of been, the response, first off, about, from people who picked up the book already?
Well, I'll tell you, I have gotten several very, very nice compliments on the cover itself, which is very simple but yet very impactful. And the name itself, which I'll talk about a little later, but is very catchy. Reconsider,
Mm-hmm.
taking a second look at it.
Yeah.
But one person literally said, "Bruce, there is no fat in this book. It's just beef," meaning you're right to the point. You don't waste our time. And kind of in a sense of a very nice compliment, saying, "Hey, listen, as your audience, the reader, you're not wasting my time with a lot of fluff. You're just spelling it out like it is."
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. And it came out pretty good. People are really responding to it. But what was like your interest in? When did you say, listen, I want to step up and actually put this out there for people to read?
Well, I started that back in the fall of 23, and I had just finished up teaching it again. But even in my own teaching it and studying it, I just felt like there was an emptiness of not knowing the sequence, the order. And that's when I kept studying and praying and saying, "Lord, I really want to, not only for my own sake, but every other book that I had read on this, it was, the topics were all like in a silo, if you would. They were just there, but they weren't really linking them together, and it was hard to follow."
Yeah.
And so in the fall of 23, I started this and actually got it finished in February of 25 when the book actually got published. And just exciting to see the process, to get it out there. And as my pastor said, he said, "Bruce, you literally took a risk putting a book out there, not just any book, but a book on Revelation." And how true that is, because there's probably going to be people that disagree, that don't understand. And in fact, I had one friend, there was a book, I forget what it's called, but the author said, "Revelation Making It Simple." And one of the comments that I saw on social media was, "Well, I'm not even going to consider this book because Revelation is not simple." Well, and I can attest that it's not. And so I don't claim that it is. I just want people to better understand it.
That's awesome. I mean, listen, I'm all for, teaching people, a simpler way of learning what they're interested in, and I think that's really great that you've created this, you created this divine, did you do a lot of your research through the Bible?
I did, but I have read several authors, one being Henry Morris, who was really the one that I leaned on the most. His book, Revelation Record, is the one that really sparked my interest and my understanding. But even our authors like Charles Swindoll, David Jeremiah, those are the kind of guys that I had been reading, and they're very spot on, they're accurate. But again, it left me thirsty for better understanding the order. They did a great job of explaining the individual events,
Mhm.
but again, not linking them together for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, you finally put it out there, though. I mean, was there anything that you found out about the revelation that that just changed your opinion on it?
Not so much changed my opinion on it, but it really brought it to life even for me. Um, there was just details in there that I didn't understand that now I feel I have a much better understanding of. And it was just the desire to not only learn that for myself, but put it out there for others, but also to now I can better speak about it.
Mhm.
And, this is one of those opportunities to speak about it and to let others know that the book of Revelation, as intimidating as it can be, doesn't have to be. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times people think, well, it's so symbolic. That's what I've heard. It's so symbolic that I can't understand it. So what's the point?
Mhm.
And in fact, I believe just the opposite. Zach, if you take the book literally as it's written, you take a lot of the symbolism out of it. And
Mhm.
even though I can't explain the event or the creature or the judgment, it doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah.
And so for me, starting with taking it literally means, okay, I'm not going to try and reinterpret this. I'm just going to lay out exactly what the Bible says about it and present it.
Yeah.
And I have used a lot of cross references to help support my point of view and my understanding of it. And so certainly people are going to disagree,
Mhm.
but at least then they have a reference to say, okay, I disagree, but I see how he got to that conclusion.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so that's another point of what I wanted them to get.
That's great. And it's good because you're fact checking yourself, number one, well, to the Bible, and and then you're also putting in why you're describing it the way it is. I mean, I think that's a great kind of like protect yourself sort of thing too against the people who are a little crazy out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And one of my challenges would be to anyone who, and again, in a nice way, doesn't agree. Okay, fine, but then you have to put that piece of the puzzle that you've just taken out of my timeline, and you have to put it somewhere. You just can't take it out and say, well, it doesn't exist or what doesn't happen. But that's fine. You can disagree, but now you have to put it somewhere else and make it fit.
100%. We're talking with Bruce. Bruce, I want to ask you, because this is your first book you've ever written. I mean, what was the process like?
Uh, yeah. So it was. At first, I had no idea. I was in my teaching of the book. Of course, I was sitting in front of my audience, and we were reading through the book at the time, and I was using bullet points,
Mhm.
and I was using poster board. Well, all of a sudden, I realized I can't do that in front of my audience now. I'm not going to meet these people. They're going to be reading it somewhere else, and I have to explain it to them, and we're not going to be reading it together. And so the process was me taking my Excel bullet point notes, putting them into Word, and then I got to a point where I said, I need an editor. And so I sat down with the fellow who actually taught me in seventh grade, Dr. Richard Heck, and he said, Bruce, your notes are good so far, but you need to put it into a book format. And I said, oh, I didn't know that. I was so ignorant. And so I guess I didn't know what I was going to do. Maybe just a bullet point or a list of bullet points.
Mhm.
Well, then I realized and I started to put it into a better format, a better organization. and then it started to flow, and that allowed me to pull out what was basically current at the time of the Apostle John writing it, as opposed to the future events which haven't happened yet.
Yeah.
And so once I broke those two sections apart, I could then write about it and take care of the time at the time, the current for John, and then get into the future part, which started with the chronological, literally verse by verse, laying out the chronological order of this, and then moving into, okay, now let's start going through what are going to be the future events.
And I think that's really great, and I'm excited for people who are interested in this to, pick this up and check it out. Reconsider Revelation, chronological order. Bruce Charsky, where can people find it?
That is a great question, Jack, and I'm excited to say that right now, just today, everything has gone live, meaning it's live on Amazon, it's live on Barnes & Noble, and it's also live through the publisher, bookbaby.com, as both a print book and an ebook. And so you can find it on those websites. And Amazon, I've already checked. They already have a supply of books, as well as Barnes & Noble. And, of course, the ebook is an immediate thing once you purchase it. But, yep, that's where you can find it, those three locations for now.
That's awesome. Well, Bruce Charsky, thank you so much for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show. Again, the book is called Reconsider Revelation, Chronological Order, and you can also find it on Amazon, too. Bruce, thanks again for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show. Best of luck with everything.
All right. Well, thank you, Zach.
Anytime. The Wednesday Music Station, Z Radio Live, back with more Zach Feldman Show right after this.
Want to hear more? Listen to the Zach Feldman Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ZRadioLive.com.